Do you know the difference between solo developer and team production? Are you interested in how indie teams create their games? And can these teams be unprofessional but still deliver a great game? Hi, I'm David and I'm the maker of the Book of Fire. Today I would love to talk about 3 topics. Working on a game alone versus working in a team, process of creating a game character from scratch, and lastly, thoughts about direction of this channel. I have come to notice that the internet is full of wonderful solo game developers. Developers who show out how they strive, struggle and succeed with a goal to create the best game human is capable making alone. But there is the word solo. It is much more rare that you see a devlog about a game that is being produced in a team. And when you achieve to find a devlog like that, the content focuses more on the game and its mechanics than the human process behind it. It almost feels like solo development is for enthusiasts, newcomers to the industry who learn on the way, and the journey itself and their determination is what makes them great. Where opposite to that, there's the team development, which for whatever reason is publicly perceived as always professional, only rational, with infinite experience, and cold. I would love to show you that team development can be all what solo development is and doesn't have to be none of what it seems to be, as I just stated before. But before that all, I would like to introduce you to the game we are creating and then to my team, so you gain some credibility and background about our project and what's behind it. The Book of Aru is true roguelike experience focusing on delivering quite forgotten feeling of self-growth and confidence, which video games used to be so good at delivering. We want to make sure that when player succeeds, it was him, not his character. The game won't win itself for you, but the better it feels when you truly win. The core of the game is tactical, rhythmical combat based around stamina management and unique attack combinations leading to different outcomes. Player must adapt to the situation, overcome trap puzzles, learn and repeat. But that's enough about the game. Let's talk about the people behind it. And mostly, to the point, about the knowledge you can take from it. Because this video is for you, so when I will be talking about us, it's to give you an example and then an information with added value. We are a small team from Czechia and we all are self-educated, although junior but yet passionate developers. Also, the Book of Aru is everyone's first bigger project within the industry, so it has a higher meaning to us. There is currently 3 of us in a core team: designer, developer and the artist, me, Luke and Mark. Above us is our patron and supervisor Ladi. Then we are receiving a big help from 2 guys caring for our music and sound effects, John and Tom. And lastly, at the beginning, we had the help from concept artist Chris, who unfortunately had to leave us due to economic reasons. Basically, everything what you see in the game is created by Luke, our artist. He is responsible for assets, models and VFX. That is all physical game objects, characters and visual effects such as magic. We make almost everything from scratch, so we have the benefit of the game being purely our own product. Next, everything you can control, you can interact with or is somehow alive is done by Mark. You guessed it, the developer. Boy, there is a lot to be coded and it's not always easy to be a single developer on the team. Lastly, that is me. I personally answer for designing the stuff my colleagues do before they do it. But to clarify things, this was still just a brief summary. We are still a small team, which means each of us does much more than just what our primary roles asks from us and our focus overlaps. Often, Mark does design what he codes on his own. Luke experiments with the game visuals without any supervision, and then he introduces it to us as an idea to talk about, and clearly, as you can see, for example, I additionally maintain and take care of public relations and marketing, and there is much more. But I think all this theoretical stuff will be much more interesting if I show you on a concrete example of what we really do throughout our day-to-day job. Let's talk about creating a new game character from scratch, a slime lady. What is needed? Intended behavior design and visual design, game model, model animations and effects, behavior mechanics, connecting all these parts together, testing, debugging, and lastly implementing the character to the game itself. First, we start with the question of what does the game needs, so it becomes more compelling during the gameplay. That's a question I'm supposed to answer. We already have one melee offensive enemy and one ranged enemy in the game. To create a balance between these two characters, some tank who disrupts the player's reused rhythm would be good. So, I come up with what vibes should this enemy give off when player sees it, and I hand it over to Lucas. It should be robust to evocate his big health, and it should look slow even before it moves. From this point, we either brainstorm about more concrete look, or, as we did with Slime Lady, we try to utilize modern technologies and look for an inspiration through AI image generators such as Midjourney. I also want to mention that very first concepts were made by Christina from when she still was a part of the team. Coming up with visual ideas in bigger teams is a responsibility of concept artists. But in the end, Luke is always left with quite a bit of creative freedom. Luke then starts creating the model in 3D software such as Blender or Maya. He also needs to make textures, which is often the most finicky part. He either hand paints it on the 3D model or makes his work relatively easier with the help of programs like Substance Designer. Meanwhile, Mark is working on special actions which distinguish this character from the others. This is beforehand described by me in as much detail as possible, so he has a clear idea what he needs to do. For this character, we needed attack, which spawns multiple colliders, attack, which makes the enemy immobile, special projectile shot under a specific curve, and more. All these new custom actions are wrapped up by me in a behavior made through nodes thanks to Obsive Behavior Designer. When the behavior is ready, it can be connected with the model. Every unique action now needs its own animation and effect. Lucas does these based on my description of the actions already made by Mark. Because effects are very prominently visible, Lucas also must think about whether new effects complement rest of the environment to sustain united atmosphere of the game. At this point, John steps in and records his own sound in his surroundings and recreate them into wonderful, monstrous sounds usable for the character. When VFX and SFX are ready, it is again Mark's turn, as he has to finally put everything what the team came up with together. Now the character is almost ready, we can implement it to the game, but before we do so and ruin our whole game with some unnoticed bug, we must test it in a sandbox. Not sometimes, but always, bugs are present. So, another time is spent, usually by me and Mark, by playtesting and analyzing, and then, when we figure out what causes the bug, code needs to be rewritten or nodes rearranged, depending on where the bug came from. At this point, I would also love to address you, the viewers. It would be awesome if you would be involved in our development. You can do that easily by commenting on our videos, as every idea is valuable. But you can also join our Discord or upcoming Patreon, and you can playtest with us. Then, at last, I implement the character into the game, as I take care of the level design. The character is ready and playable. To get an idea, this might have taken us about 3 weeks of work, but meanwhile this time period, we are also working on other game features, while we wait until the others are done with their assignment. Some parts of the described process take longer than others, and cannot be done effectively simultaneously. So, as you can see on this example, we all heavily rely on each other. None of us would be capable of doing this whole process alone. Working in a team comes with many advantages and some inconveniences. Let's talk about them. Because we all sustain some primary role and we love what we do, Each of us separately can focus more in depth on certain parts of the development process, which should ensure higher quality of the product in the end, and also faster. Sure, there is many examples of solo developers doing all what I just described all alone, and kudos to them. But it either takes much more time, or they use bought presets from the online stores, or, no offense, some parts do not click as well as they should. Solo developer naturally cannot specialize on everything, and he is either passionate about coding, modeling, designing, but not all of these together. And even when he is, he cannot give everything the same amount of attention. We can, and we do. We can also check and protect each other from doing unnecessary mistakes. We can stop the mistakes before they grow big. We also learn one from each other and enrich our experiences. None of us is a professional, but because we work next to each other, we can make up for our shortcomings and work more reliable as a cohesive unit. Also, everyone has a unique perspective on the problems we have to deal with, and thanks to cooperation, we can come up with best solution. Where working alone, there is often only one kind of thinking, thus only one way of how to deal up with stuff. But sure, there are some downfalls. Working in a team is much more expensive. There is not one, but many hungry mouths to feed. Working alone, you would also hardly come to have an argue with your colleague.
And never come back. No.
But communication in a team is an area to deal with on its own. Not only arguments, which are quite healthy by the way, but also misinterpretation can be an issue. That's why bigger teams have a special job position dedicated just for work redistribution, team producers. Working alone versus working in a team is clearly not all black and white. But yeah, for now, that's it. This is my small insight into how work management can work in a team, which can be as enthusiastic and as self-educative as the work of other game and content creators you can watch. Now, this is the end of the main video, but you can stay with me for a small contemplation. I've hardly covered 1% of what working in a team is, I know. So that's why I would like to discuss with you, what would you be interested in seeing in the future? You can take this unique opportunity of newly rising channel and aim it in the direction you would love to see it go further on. Would you like me to go more in depth on what specific roles in teams answer for? Would you like to hear more stuff about concrete parts of the game development, such as this time's character creation? And would you also like to hear from my colleagues, not only from me? As I personally am a feature designer, I could and would love to talk almost infinitely about thoughts which goes into decision making about level design, game loop, core mechanics, etc. Or is some theoretical debate about world of team development more appealing to you? Once, I would also love to talk about us, the makers of the Book of Aru, where every one of us had quite a unique and different way how he got into the industry. I feel like that could be inspiring or at least interesting to some of you. There are many and more options, and I would love to talk about all of that. But time is limited, and I also have to work on the game itself. So sadly, I cannot attend it all. So please tell me what interests you the most, and maybe I will take you on a whole new journey. Until that time, have fun and enjoy the most important game you play, called life. Bye.